Mayor, we do have a quorum. It is 6:30. You can call the meeting to order. Councilman Goldberg, Councilman Pagan, here. Councilman G, here. Councilman Katz, Deputy Mayor Belcher, Deputy Mayor Organ, Mayor Schwartz. Here. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by resolution number 300-2024, sending a copy to the newspapers officially designated for 2025 by way of resolution number 2-2025, filing a copy in the township clerk's office. Posting on this building bulletin board, and the mayor hereby directs that this statement be included in the minutes. The first resolution we consider tonight, council resolution number 93-2025, authorizing council enter into closed session to discuss municipal judge interviews, potential sale of township property, personnel, contracts, NJ Route 4 project, legal issues and or opinions regarding any items on the open session agenda, litigation updates, and Oprah. Is there a first? All in favor? Aye. Wonderful. We'll be back at 8.
Yes. Order. Roll call, please.
Yeah, I'm doing that. 1 second. Sorry, Mayor. Pledge of Allegiance, and then roll call.
Yep. All rise for pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, justice for all. Roll call.
Yes, sir, Mayor. We have Councilwoman Goldberg.
Here.
Councilman Pagan.
Here.
Councilwoman G.
Here.
Councilman Katz. Deputy Mayor Belcher.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Organ.
Here.
Mayor Schwartz.
Here.
Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by resolution number 300-2024, sending a copy to the newspapers officially designated for 2025 by way of resolution number 2-2025, filing a copy in the township clerk's office and posting on the municipal building bulletin board, and the mayor hereby directs that this statement be included in the minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Teaneck Administration present at tonight's meeting are Jacqueline Hashmet, the Township Manager, Doug Rusiona, Township Clerk. Christian is not going to be here tonight. Scott Salmon, our Township Attorney, Ron Goodman, our Volunteer Cable Master. Some upcoming events and council meetings and information. For the public's information, we're currently holding a hybrid format meeting. We have people in person and on Zoom. If our Wi-Fi at the municipal building has an issue where the Zoom meeting drops, we will aim to retrieve the connection and continue the meeting. If you haven't yet, please signed up for our alerts. Please do on our website, www.tnecnj.gov. The next televised regular council meeting will be on March 11th, which begins at 6:30 p.m. with public portion beginning at 8 p.m. I thank everyone that was able to attend our 2025 Ramadan celebration at the Rota Center last night. The crescent moon will be lit on the municipal green until the end of Ramadan. Council met in closed session to discuss the following: municipal judge interviews, potential sale of township property, personnel, contracts, legal issues and opinions regarding any items on the open session agenda, litigation updates, and Oprah. With that, we'll begin our regular agenda, and we're going to start with, I believe, the presentations. Certificate of recognition to Salif Main, our FDU triple jumper. Councilwoman Belcher, Deputy Mayor Belcher will head down and present that. I know with some people outside also, or
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Hopefully you can hear me. We're on, right? Okay, so I don't know about many of you, but I love the Olympics, and probably my favorite Olympics is track and field. So I was really astonished to know that we have within our township a gentleman who holds a world record, and his name is Salif Main. And Salif, if you would come over and just yes. This gentleman is, we want to recognize him. He's an FDU graduate. He's Fairleigh Dickinson University's triple jumper and 2024 civil engineer graduate. He is 6th in the world. He holds the record for a jumper. And he's one of the most decorated FDU athletes in the university's history. The 4th Knight to compete for Team USA in the Olympics, and the first to represent since 1988. We congratulate and recognize your phenomenal performance in the 2024 Paris Olympics. And we thank you for helping put Teaneck on the map. Congratulations. Yes, yes. This is for you. It's signed, all the council has signed, and we truly appreciate the efforts that you give to the sport. I believe that sports is a way in which we bring people together, and you certainly have shown that in many ways. And I'm going to open it up to my colleagues to see if there's any comments.
Demir Katz?
No, I just want to say congratulations. Keep up the great work. The mayor was commenting that there's a lot of swag in this room with the Teaneck's different sweatshirts, and we're wondering if you brought an extra large, a small.
The FDU also, you have that, you got our sweatshirt?
Yeah,
We give you a proclamation, you give a sweatshirt. So
I obviously didn't get the memo.
yeah, exactly. Okay.
Also want to say congratulations. I mean, what a feat to go to the Olympics and play, do so well. And we're so proud of you. We're so happy you're here in Teaneck. I would love to hear more stories about that experience if we ever have time. I think that's just so phenomenal. And so thank you for sharing your story with us, and just congratulations.
I just wanted to, sorry, my mic is high, sorry. Just again, congratulations. This is very exciting, and you make Teaneck proud. So really great job. Amazing.
I am a big fan of FDU and FDU sports. So I just want to say congratulations, and we're so very proud of you.
And thank you for coming out tonight. I'm sure you had many things to do, but thank you for coming out and letting us be proud of you and celebrate with you.
You were on the Teaneck campus? The track. Did you also jog the streets or just the track? Okay. I'm surprised Councilman Cass didn't do this. I'm gonna go outside with you and we're gonna challenge.
I'm in. Let's do it.
Are you ready? Are you ready to give that
Let's do it right
back?
now.
You're gonna give that back. Well, you're getting that proclamation back. All right, excellent. Thank you very much. I'm gonna trip going down there actually. So, all right, congratulations. Thank you for making us proud. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Give us a 5-minute head start.
5 minutes. I need a 5-day head start.
But
Next, a Fields Advisory presentation. Deputy Mayor Organ, would you like to start?
Yes, as the liaison to the Field Advisory Board, along with Councilman Pagan, I just want to say that this is a great group of people who came together only a couple of months ago to start working, but has done such a good job coming up with a plan that really helps the youth of the entire town. And I just want to recognize everybody by name, the chair and soccer liaison, newly shaved Avi Berliner. Mike, thank you. Micah Prada from Lancers Baseball. Andrew Gelbtuck from TBO. Travis Meyer from Teaneck Southern. Ryan Lugo from football. Christina Pammy from PPREB. And then Mike Surmabakian from the DPW, who's worked really hard. Anthony D'Angelo from the Teaneck Public Schools. Sean Powers, our new acting rec supervisor, and Ibrahim, who's been great. Jenny Levy, who's our new Board of Ed rep. And that's everyone. And so the board met and came up with a recommendation for the town that we're going to hear now. Thank you.
Wow, thank you. Thank you very much, Council, Mr. Mayor, Ms. Hashmat, parents, stakeholders, players, coaches, and the entire board. I just want to personally thank you all for helping to make this happen this evening. What we're going to show you is a conversation that has really come out of months and months of conversations across the township, both formally within our meetings, informally with various groups, but also listening up in other advisory boards, right? In Board of Ed meetings, what do people want? What are they looking for? And this is really a unique opportunity to deliver something that will continue to put Teaneck on the map and really help take us to the next level. So let's go. So just to help take you along our journey for probably the last 6 months or so, we were tasked to engage our stakeholders, engage the community, sports organizations, Board of Education, DPW, Recreation, and identify our project. What do we want to do next? What field needs to be improved? Where's the greatest bang for our buck and value? Through our own board, through other parents that reached out to us, we identified a number of parks that all had fields throughout the township to take a closer look at. Phelps, Votee, Terhune, Sagamore, Hawthorne, Argonne, Brooks, Amon. And I purposely call those out, and you'll see on the next page, we really looked at every field in all corners and all neighborhoods throughout the town, and you'll understand where and why we came to Votee. Through discussions, it was decided that what we really need is a 90-foot baseball field that can be used not only for baseball, not only for majors, but for all sports. And we have a way to make that happen. We then worked with our township, with the council members, as well as the Department of Public Works and the acting superintendent of recreation to engage 2 vendors. We brought them in for site visits. They provided initial recommendations and numbers for budgeting to let this happen. They let us know what they thought we would be able to do. They let us know what they thought we would not be able to do. And looking at the number of fields available, the supporting infrastructure in the location, other planned projects at particular parks, we settled on a board recommendation to redevelop Votee Park's middle field as a 90-foot multi-use baseball field. You could all leave now if you want to, but that is the recommendation. If you can go to the next slide, please, Doug. I want to provide this just as a point of reference. I wanted to show on the visual here across Teaneck, each green dot, if you can see, is actually a park that we have. It's a park, doesn't necessarily mean that it has a field, but each of the 8 that I mentioned previously and are up there with the blue dots actually show every park that has a field on it. And we considered each one of those in our conversation. I went through our meeting notes and our videos from the last 4 months to see, really, we actually put out and discussed these, again, all corners, every possibility. Where can we go and what can we do? What I'm showing on the right there is a visual of Votee Park. And I don't think that this sort of visual actually exists anywhere else. I don't think that anyone has the point of reference of what are the different fields in Votee. And just as we talk through this to make sure that we're all having a common conversation, if we're starting at the northern tip next to where the TBO field house is, let's call it, by the pool, clubhouse, coming down is middle field. Clubhouse is a little league size field. You'll notice that it has grass on the infield. It's for little league. Middle field, in recent years, there really hasn't been much work done on it. It has an all clay infield for softball. But as the season goes on, it's really unplayable. There's weeds that come up. It needs to be mowed, even though it does get mowed. It floods, as we know, is a big problem in almost all the fields in Votee. New field, as we continue moving on south, is the new field. A number of years ago, the township did invest in new concrete blocks that have some new fencing. There were new dugouts that were installed, as well as relatively small bleachers. But if you can quickly see along right field, right to the bottom left over here, it does have a fairly small right field to allow that to happen. Moving south, there's Lancers, which was rehabilitated again a number of years ago. It is an all grass football field. There are baseball field, 90 foot. There are sprinklers installed, used by Lancers. It can be used by the high school, but it's really used for majors. The field house and the sportsplex. Again, point of perspective, some of what we're talking about may make some more sense. Doug, if you can move on, please. First vendor that we engaged is a company called American Athletic Track and Turf. We actually, for some reason, chose the 2 coldest days over the winter to bring our vendors in. And the first was we walked through Votee, right? There were 2 fields there, major and minor. And we thought that we actually had room there to do some work on, to put a 90-foot baseball field in. Walked through it. They initially thought that we could, and they came back and said, no, there's really no room for a 90-foot at Phelps. There's the Arboretum, which we don't want to have to touch. There are playgrounds that we don't want to have to move. There are houses on either field, adjacent to either field. There's really no room for that. It would be too much work. However, we took them to Votee and they came back and said, great, we have middle field, we have new field. We can utilize those two fields to put in a 90-foot baseball field, and we can actually do what they call a 60-90 field, get both sides of the field on the same plot. Field turf it, right? So we don't have to worry about flooding. We can remediate the flooding issues and essentially cap, as we did at the Sportsplex probably 18 years ago, if I have my number correct. And for those that really are in tune with the way the contracting works, they would actually perform under the state contract, under their state contract as part of the co-op. So that would serve benefits for those that it makes something to. The two vendors did provide their initial budgeting estimates slightly differently. This particular firm provided more of an itemized budget. And while they did come out with almost $2.5 million, what you can note is that this is itemized, right? So if we decide that we don't need to or don't want to do the lighting, for instance, that would pull a significant chunk of change out here. Again, this is going into Votee where there are already light stanchions, there's already electricity. So we're not necessarily starting from square one. Next slide, please, Doug. The second firm that we engaged is a company called Athletic Fields of America. And I just want to point out something for reference. They're not new to Teaneck. So when we redid a Prada field down by Hawthorne, a fully turfed 60-foot field, this was the firm that completed that. So they already know how we do things. They also were the ones who installed and did the reinstall, actually, of the FDU baseball field, right? So as you're getting on Route 4 going to the west, you'll notice FDU has a beautiful new field that they play there. These are the folks who did that. They know how to deal with the flooding. They do it all in-house. And they had extreme flooding issues there because they sit right next to the Hackensack River. That's actually my understanding, as they explained why they couldn't even put in lights there. They couldn't even sink into stanchions, but they were able to put in a field all weather. The other piece locally that they're involved with is that if anyone has driven through Bogota, to the major project that's going on in Bogota, this is actually the organization, this is the company that's doing that install. Now, what Bogota is doing is a much larger partnership and project between the Board of Education to renovate a number of their 100-plus-year-old school buildings, as well as put in a number of baseball fields, a brand new turfed-in football field, shift everything 90 degrees or so. I think the whole project is on the order of $17 or $19 million. Very different than what we're looking at here, but these guys know what happens locally. Their budget, they came back with something slightly lower. They estimated about $2.3 million, pending if a detention system is needed. But I would like to point out, and if Michael Surmabakian from the DPW would be here, he would note also that we already have sewers available in Votee Park. So if and when we have the opportunity to bring the engineer and the formal design on board, that may not actually be an issue. We may be able to tie into that. It includes bleachers. It assumes normal soil conditions, does not include lighting, but we discussed a little while ago, we can do lighting separately, right? It's not necessarily a non-starter. From an environmental constraint standpoint, this company made a point of noting that they're actually an international firm. They're owned by a company in Europe. And for them to be able to install professional soccer fields over in Europe, right? The EU regulation does not allow them to use microplastics or PFAS, right? So for anyone who's ever watched a football game on television, right, or who's ever been to the Sportsplex, if you drag your foot, there's like a cloud of black behind you, right? A small cloud. That's all the little rubber pellets coming up. They actually don't even do that anymore. So this is environmentally friendly, no microplastics to seep into the water table. There have been concerns that have been put out there from a health standpoint. Not something that we would have to worry with this install. They were also kind enough to provide a visual as to what a lined field could look like. I'd like you just to keep in mind that this is just an initial idea for a conceptual picture. We can get this lined however we want. But this right now is sitting on top of the field, a 90-foot baseball field, a 60-foot baseball field, a softball field, a full football field, a full-size soccer field, as well as two half-field soccer fields that are utilized for U9. What else can go on here is that for Little League, what many fields actually do and many places do is you can actually put multiple fields onto a single field, right? So you're not just adding one baseball field, you're potentially adding 2 or 3 baseball fields if you get movable fences, and there are other ways. To do that. So this is really just not only going to increase the capacity of what we do, but really increase, for every sport, for every youth organization, for the Board of Education. It's truly going to bring, just a brand new offering to the residents of the town. And finally, what I'd like to leave you with, Doug, if you can move on, is a thought. I mean, this is truly a unique opportunity. For some reason, I have way too much time on my hands. And I've scoured Google Maps. I've driven all over Bergen County. And this is not a project that exists anywhere else, right? This really would allow Teaneck to continue to build, and on top of the foundation of the Sportsplex, right? A best in Bergen public multi-use complex. There's nothing public that's available like this. And I think that Teaneck has always taken pride to be able to build this as a community and give it back to the community. But again, it would truly enable our students, our children, our residents to lead and succeed at the highest levels of sport and competition. So again, thank you very much for the opportunity. I look forward to being able to continue along with the board and the players to help to bring this to fruition. So please, if you have any questions or any thoughts, please, let us know.
No volleyball?
We could even line it for pickleball if we wanted to. That's the beauty of an artificial turf field.
That sounds great. Was there any comment? I don't think anyone here objects to it. I can't. Anyone? We're good? This is.
Wait, can I ask? This is run ask for the manager and
Please.
whatever. Can we have the manager have engineering start the drainage stuff ahead of time so that way, like, we get ahead of it to get it moving?
Anything getting moving is my specialty. I love it.
Great. So can we do that?
Absolutely. I'll speak with Farah and I'll
So,
coordinate with
so
Avi.
how many? I think. Can you go back slide wise? There was one of the slides. Yeah. How many? So it's, I'm sorry.
Back over
How
here.
many square feet of turf is that? I just can't.
So they estimated about 146,000 square feet of turf at $16 a square foot. Again, if and when you decide to move forward, right, those will become real numbers in terms of the size.
Okay, so I just want to know if everyone's okay if we ask the manager to start the stormwater review with engineering, because it's hard. I'm sorry, I can't see that far.
Yeah.
But I just want to get ahead of it now.
Absolutely.
So do you have the figures for what's in most and what we're getting from PSE&G handy?
If I'm not mistaken, and please don't quote me on this, I mean, I would defer to the CFO. In aggregate, I think it's about $2.5 million is the last that I had seen. And again, that would be before, even if we would want to move forward with any sort of Green Acres application proposal, which has the potential to, slash our outlay by 50% potentially. And again, that's how we funded the Sportsplex initially as well.
So just to keep in mind that this project, while it's a great project, would eat up what's currently in most, and that PSE&G money, should we ever get it. So
Yeah, I'll
before
jump
we
in.
do studies, so before we move on to studies, I think it's something we need to discuss, because if we're not able to fund this, which I think we can, then we may not be doing the studies there. We may be doing a smaller field someplace else. But also to keep in mind that what we spend now on this will bring us many fields together. And if we do it year after year, it will take longer and end up costing more eventually.
It's also that most is not static, right? Most, right? The township really took a leap forward and renewed last year, right? Last year's election. So that will continue to accrue additional funds, right? So it's not like we spend it
But we
all
just
today.
bought a swim club.
That's true.
And keep in mind, most of our new ratables that come on increase our most. So it's every year
That's
regenerates and grows.
That's correct.
Mr. Mayor, if I can.
Yes, please.
So I played on a lot of our fields back in the 1980s and 1990s, and sadly, a lot of those fields look exactly the same. So one of my dreams and goals has always been to turf as many fields and improve as many fields as possible for our kids. So I just want to thank all of you, all the coaches, all the kids who are here, all the board members, for getting this conversation going and for getting the process going, because it is a process, but you absolutely have my vote and my support on this. So thank you again so very much.
So I'll tell you, I was actually disappointed as I
sorry.
walked in this evening, because I saw the football players who had practiced just before this knocking the mud off their cleats. I was hoping they would sort of drag it in here to push the point. But thank you very much.
Ruin the carpets?
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, are we?
Wait, Scott, can you just confirm, we've been told, I don't know, a lot about this, the PSE&G money has to be used for acquisition unless we give them 3.37 acres of land.
I need to check I know there have been communications with Green Acres about it. I need to look at and refresh my memory because I just don't remember off the top of my head.
I believe we were told it was free money, spend as we want.
Let me just double check and I can get back to you
Okay,
guys on this.
excellent.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
I just want to say thank you. This was an excellent presentation. So excited for the future of this project.
Thank you.
I just want to
Okay.
add, I think it's exciting to see that, we're doing some things that's value add to Voti Park and to all of our athletes and future Olympians as well.
Sports night in Teaneck.
Yes, and I look forward to seeing you up here next year for the next project.
Wow. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, guys.
Have a good
Okay. Yes, always that awkward moment where you're not sure if you can leave. You can leave now. No worries. No worries. Yeah.
They're all outside.
Oh, I can do it during miscellaneous.
Okay, thank you very much. And as they're emptying out, we're going to go on to our next resolution, the amended resolution regarding subcommittee. Sorry, are we on the right? I apologize. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Hackensack River.
Sorry.
oh,
I skipped the whole page. I'm sorry about that. Okay, those are presentations. Work session items, miscellaneous.
I have one.
Yes. Councilwoman
Mr. Clerk, I'd like to move that we add to the consent agenda the appointment of Travis Meyer to the Field Advisory Board as the Teaneck Southern Rep with a term of January 1st, 2025 to December 31st, 2026.
Second.
Third. Okay, and miscellaneous. Anybody else?
So
Did
that
you
would
want to vote on that or were you not? Yes.
I think everyone nodded their
Yes,
heads
got
there.
it.
Yeah. So that's going to be resolution 100
Yes.
2025. No joke.
Okay, old business. New business. Communications. Okay, committee reports by council liaisons. We'll start with, I'll do mine afterwards. The 2024 Hackensack River Greenway Advisory Board Annual Report.
I think you are the liaison now, right, Danielle? Yeah, they're
Yeah,
a great group of people though, and their meetings are always very quick. They do a lot to help the town, but I'm sorry, Danielle, in case you didn't want to say anything.
Is that just something to reference in the report? Is that you just want to tell us? Okay, so that report's in there. Thank you very much, and we'll take a look at that. My committee report, zoning subcommittee, we'll talk about a community-wide meeting likely to be held in April as it relates to a Regina's area property. The manager will report on that in her report. That's what I have on my report. Also, just on my report, the Cedar Lane Management Group is moving ahead with the redoing of the brown paper as a test trial. I mentioned that last time, and it's moving ahead. With the dollar store going to have a redo of not vacant brown paper, but Teaneck Cinema, Teaneck streetscape related coverings that we're going to look as a test project to potentially ban the use of brown paper and a vacant store. This is a test product, and they're continuing to work on that with
Mr.
store
Mayor,
consent.
can I ask a question on that?
Yes.
From what I read and understand, it's not being, the cost is not being absorbed by the future potential merchant.
Right now, there is no ordinance. There's nothing right now.
I'm
This is
just
a
saying
sample
for this-
to be discussed. Landlord, but we haven't formalized anything at this point yet. Is that, I imagine you're saying you're against that? Is that what you're?
Yeah, I mean, I just think like, how many expenses are you gonna give this merchant before they even open up their doors?
Right. I believe it would be the landlord because it's actually on
How many
vacancy, not on
expenses are you
lease
gonna
up.
give a landlord before their tenant opens up the doors?
Probably more than the stained, dirty brown paper that they currently have in their window.
It's not, whatever.
Not stained?
I mean, what, not every brown paper is stained, no. I mean, it's better than newspaper.
Oh, all right. Well, there's no ordinances right now, so it's definitely something
All
to
right.
discuss down in the future. I hear your input. Anyone else on any other committees?
I do have, I just want to comment on the window covering. I think it's a great idea. I think that we need to really do whatever we can to spruce up all of our business districts whenever we have vacancies. So having something that pretty much says coming soon, or, TNEC, TNEC wins, or whatever it is, I think it's a whole lot better than brown paperbacks.
Swim Club Subcommittee met with some former board members of the Swim Club on Friday. We met with many of the department heads from MIS and Recreation, DPW, and this morning, we met at the Swim Club property with the DPW, police, fire, MIS, manager, deputy manager, and I think part of it'll be in the manager's report, but they have a lot of work to do to bring everything up to code for this coming summer. But we're looking forward to opening as what shall be named, I guess, the TNEC pool or TNEC, whatever it will be named. It was a very, very, very exciting, and we got a lot of progress done.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that the Chamber of Commerce, we did meet, attended the last meeting. Some exciting things are happening there. One of the things that we talked about is, I'm hearing myself twice. It's like an echo. Is there an echo? Yeah. Oh, okay, no problem. So basically, one of the recommendations that I've made is that looking at going forward for a lot of the chambers in the area, we really want to step up some opportunities as pertains to what's happening a year from now with the World Cup. So, looking at opportunities that our businesses can partake in terms of, in our township in general, in terms of preparation for the World Cup. So one of the things I like for my colleagues to think about is the possibility of us having a task force to really kind of like speak to the World Cup, chiming in terms of what's happening on the state level, on the county level, and regionally, what's happening and so forth, because we don't want to have missed opportunities, and we want to pretty much have as much time as possible to really prepare for it. So I'd like for us to entertain the possibility of a task force.
I actually think Mr. Manager, did you get an email? I thought I saw an email about a task force they're forming county-wide. There is one form, right? Mayor Katz had always said the best way to prepare for this is build more hotels. Our hotels are practically sold out, so that would have been, but it may be too late in time for the next for this event. But that would have been great. Okay, I think we all agree on that. That's important. We'll look into that task force in the emails. Committees. Anyone else? Committees? Okay. Council listed items. Formation of redevelopment agency for townwide redevelopment. Mayor Schwartz, Deputy Mayors Organ and Belcher. What I'm looking for is 4 nodding heads to invite our redevelopment attorney into closed session to discuss, and we've discussed this before in the past, close first because of some hiring and contracts involved first, and then a future public meeting to discuss the possibilities, as we've done probably 2 or 3 times in the last 5 or 6 years, of a redevelopment agency. This idea came about with some community, with some neighborhood meetings that we've been having over the last 6-7 weeks, and specifically with the Coalition of Neighborhood Associations. And it's something that if I have 4 nodding heads, we'll make that invitation, get more information on what the redevelopment agency does, and welcome our planning board chair that just discussed it with us, as a matter of fact.
Mr. Mayor,
So, yes,
I
please.
don't have any objection to what you just said,
Excellent.
but I've got a request from a few members of the public that when we do this, the 4 nodding heads thing, it's hard to see. Can we just do a roll call to do this? Like, I don't have an issue with it, but just.
Gladly. Okay, so can we do a roll call of nodding heads? This is to to take the initial step forward by inviting our redevelopment attorney to first a closed session, then a public session, to provide the potential creation of a redevelopment agency.
Cool.
That motion was made by Schwartz, seconded by Deputy Mayor Belcher.
Councilwoman Goldberg,
Yes.
Councilman Pagan,
Yes.
Councilwoman G,
Yes.
Councilman Katz, Deputy Mayor Belcher,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Organ,
Yes.
Mayor Schwartz.
Yes. Proposed ordinance protests. Mayor Schwartz, Deputy Mayor Organ, Councilman Katz. Deputy Mayor Organ.
Yeah. So there is an ordinance that we're proposing. It's been discussed in closed session a few times. I'm bringing it forward. And I want to discuss what this ordinance is and what this ordinance isn't. It seems like there's a lot of chatter around town, and I hope to clarify some. And I would then be looking for four nodding heads to move this forward to introduce it. So amending the township code for the township of Teaneck to provide for additional regulations on the time, place, manner of special events within the township. Whereas over the preceding year, the township of Teaneck has experienced an increase in large gatherings proceeding along a public street, public sidewalk, or other public right-of-way, both organized and not. They have raised concerns over the public health, safety, and welfare of the residents of the township. And whereas at the same time, the mayor and township council seek to protect the right of its residents to participate in peaceful marches, demonstrations, and other excessive activity that are protected by the United States and New Jersey constitutions. And whereas certain sections of the township code can and should be clarified to provide for additional guidance as to the rights of those participating in such gatherings, as well as township officials in enforcing the township code. And whereas it is the intent of this amendment to protect and preserve the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of Teaneck, including by establishing certain time, place, and manner regulations to ensure that constitutionally protected activity can safely proceed without undue interference. And whereas the township believes that to promote clarity and understanding these rights, it is necessary from time to time to update the language used in the township code as well as the procedures. And then it goes on to describe special events and parades and list restrictions. It explains that most events were looking to be permitted. So people would fill out a permit that would go to the manager and the police chief. I've done this many times for large events. They would then approve or amend the application based on what they feel is safe for the community. And then it goes on to describe restrictions if there is no permit applied for, there is no permit. So here's what this ordinance is meant to do. It's meant to establish time, place, and manner regulations. It's meant to protect the First Amendment rights, the right to worship freely, but also the right to exercise freedom of speech. It's meant to be protective, and it's not meant to be restrictive. Here's what this ordinance doesn't do. It doesn't restrict gatherings and music in your backyard after 7 o'clock at night. It doesn't restrict you from climbing trees in the park if you want to do that. I think, unless there's another ordinance that says we can't do that. It doesn't restrict joggers. It doesn't restrict a color guard during a parade. So there's been a lot of chatter on social media claiming that this is what this ordinance does. It is not what this ordinance does. It's in the packet and it is online. There are a few small changes that I would like to make before the next meeting. Some people are saying that you can't carry a small flag with a wooden stick in the 4th of July parade. If it needs to be clarified that that's not a weapon, then I think we should change that. So a few small changes that we'd like to make just to make things more clear. But I would look to change it and introduce it as in the next meeting for introduction. My feeling is that as elected officials, we have many jobs, but the two most important are to protect the safety of our residents and the feeling of our residents that they are safe here. And I think we have not been able to do that fully over the last year. I think that applies equally to every group in town. Anybody should be free to worship and anybody should feel protected. And the other thing this ordinance does is it gives clarity, it gives clear direction to the police department so that they now have something that they can work with to protect us, and they feel supported by us because we've passed a regulation. So I guess if there's other comment, otherwise.
So you're looking, this is not for tonight. It's just, can you clarify what you're looking for in terms of scheduling?
I'd like support to put it on for introduction at the next meeting.
And then it would be introduction and then another meeting thereafter. So
And
there's
then another,
no
and then the
voting
next meeting
tonight. This is
adoption.
not being read into tonight.
Correct.
Okay.
Wait, so I'm sorry, I want to make sure I understand. So this is, you're not moving to introduce this tonight. You're asking if it could be introduced at the next meeting?
I'd like support from 4 council members. I didn't specifically put it on the agenda for introduction because I felt that we discussed that it wouldn't be, it wouldn't be right, and we should see that we have the support before we put it on for introduction. But yeah, that's what I'm looking for.
I have a question. Scott, can you just clarify, did you draft this ordinance?
So so about a year ago, I was asked by several members of the council to draft a ordinance related to protests. At the time, I drafted an ordinance that was I'll say different than this version, or at least partially different, based on one that we borrowed from Hackensack, which had done they'd done a lot of research into this, and so I prepared a draft based on that. Over the last few months, I want to say there were a number of council members and some other individuals asked for changes to be made to the ordinance, which are reflected in this version that you're seeing here before you. So I'll say I didn't draft the current version of this. I have obviously reviewed all of it, and I've, as you're aware, as the council's aware, I've obviously provided legal guidance to the council on this version. But I don't know if I would say that. I don't know if I would say I drafted it, because it's in a different form than the one that I originally drafted.
So which part did you take from Hackensack and which part did you not do?
So let me see. The parts that I had originally drafted, so let me see, the first page go here. So the definitions that were provided, I think I had drafted a slightly different version of the parade definition. I believe the special event definition was added in after. In section 31B9, I had drafted subsections A, B, D, E, part of F, I, J, L, M, N, O, and O. So it's a little more than half of this, but the main differences from the original version are in sections, I think, C, part of F, G, H, and P, I believe. But and then I should say the sections 31 B1 through B8 were already was already in the code as it stands. So those were not drafted by me. Those were drafted, I'm not sure how long ago.
Can you just address, how does this address spontaneous protests? For instance, Zaka protests, when somebody came to Teaneck, would this prevent that? What does that do in that situation?
Remind me, which was that protest?
When Nardine Kaswani came.
So I don't remember that specific protest.
Outside of the synagogue when the Zaka protest happened in April 1st, 2024.
West Englewood Avenue.
I'm sorry?
West Englewood Avenue. No.
I'll be honest with you. I know there have obviously been a lot of protests in Teaneck in the last year and a half, so I don't remember the specific one.
So there was no permit for anybody.
So it's for spontaneous protests were required. There's precedent under the Supreme Court that if someone we're allowed to require permits. If someone doesn't comply with the requirements here, we are still obligated to essentially give them an opportunity to obtain a permit, even if it's spontaneous. It's it's ultimately their choice as to whether or not the protesters' choice as to whether or not they request a permit at that time. What we are allowed to do depends on whether or not they actually obtain a permit or not. I'll say the police have more ability to act if someone doesn't request a permit, depending on the nature of the protest. If someone obtains a permit that allows them to protest in a certain area using certain streets, and obviously the police can only essentially assist them with it. If someone doesn't apply for a permit and they are completely blocking the street or blocking the right of way, the police have more authority to move the protest along or force it in a different direction. So depends, I will say, it depends on the nature of the specific spontaneous protest, and that we still have to give them an opportunity to get a permit. But what the police are able to do, if they, depends on if they do or they don't take that opportunity that we're giving them, and then depends on what the protesters then do after that. So I'm not sure if that answers your question or not, but.
Mr. Attorney, most importantly, could we discuss the town green, where it's just traditionally a place where we've had protests? How, if at all, does this talk, or are there any restrictions on that? Can we talk about municipal green? We're told that there is no, where the First Amendment has their absolute right, and there is no.
So, and this is in subsection F of the, I'm sorry, section 31B9, subsection F. It's page 25 of the packet. And basically what it says is that you have an absolute right to protest in what we call the traditional public forums. So the parks, public parks, plazas, streets and sidewalks, and otherwise traditional areas like that. It restricts ability to protest in areas like inside the police station or the headquarters or a fire station, inside of a township owned building, like this building here. Those areas are restricted absent the right to absent permits. That's really done for public safety or the government's ability to.
So
act.
that's all. So municipal
Yeah,
green,
so-
fully
yes.
on, no permits. Do what you want to do. Go outside right now. I don't like how you're talking. I can go outside and protest.
Correct. Yeah.
Understood.
Mr. Mayor?
Mayor McCon.
Mr. Mayor? Two quick questions for you, Scott, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but I do respect your opinion.
Mhm.
I'm just gonna cut right to the crux of the matter. Is this constitutional, and did the township hire a constitutional attorney to look at this?
So the township did not hire I'll say, specific constitutional attorney to look at this. I'm not comfortable giving an answers to whether or not that's, I said it's attorney, I can't give my legal advice in that context to the public. Those are conversations I have to have with you guys individually or as a group, just separately. I can't waive attorney-client privilege and give that kind of thing. Give an answer to something like that. But I know I've expressed my opinions on that to, I think, to all of you at this point.
Thank you, Scott.
Deputy Mayor Belcher.
Okay, Mr. Attorney, in 2020, there were several Teaneck residents that on Sundays would do car caravans. And this was in protest for the killing of George Floyd. And the scenario was no permits were, to my knowledge, were taken out. As you can imagine, in 2020, we were still in the midst of COVID. So assembling was done by way of car caravan. Based upon this ordinance, would that be considered illegal?
So I'll say no. The only way that would cause any issues under this ordinance is in subsection I of also this page 26 of the packet of 31B9, in that with the free flow of traffic has to remain unimpeded. So if car caravan is going through town and the cars are moving and it's not, I'll say, fully blocking traffic, then that's not a problem. If all the cars suddenly stop in the middle of the road and cars can't get by, pedestrians can't get by, things like that, that's a different thing, and that would be with absent a permit. That would not be permitted. But if cars are moving and it's not fully blocking traffic, then this would not it would not violate this ordinance.
Denise, can I ask a follow-up to that?
Sure.
If they did get a permit, it would be under the manager and the police chief's discretion to close down the street so that they could flow freely without being interrupted at intersections. Right, Scott?
That's correct.
No? Okay, so if that's the case, we'll look for it. The question is that we're looking for a motion and a second to then put it on at a future meeting for introduction. If that's the case, if there's no questions, I'll make a motion to nod my head to put this on at a future council meeting for introduction.
Is that for March 11th, Mayor?
March 11th it is.
Second.
That's a second from Deputy Mayor Organ to see this proposed language for introduction. On March 31st, we have Councilwoman Goldberg.
Abstain.
We have Councilman Pagan.
No.
We have Councilwoman G.
Abstain.
We have Councilman Katz. We have Deputy Mayor Belcher.
Abstain.
We have Deputy Mayor Organ.
Yes.
We have Mayor Schwartz.
Yes.
So because there were 3 abstentions and there aren't 4 votes, it doesn't pass.
That's correct. I'm pulling up the code to make sure, but I believe that's correct.
Can I
Yeah,
make a motion, I
that's correct.
guess, for the council to hire an independent constitutional person to review this and advise the council on how we handle these complicated constitutional issues?
I'll second that. That's what I had asked you in closed
But-
session before.
Independent.
Yes.
So-
Let's do-
yeah,
So the motion is second on the floor, Mr. Clerk, if you call the roll call, that's for the council to retain an independent constitutional attorney to take a look at this and comment accordingly. Be under your auspices, Mr. Attorney?
So what I think that we'll have to do is, I can pull up some recommendations for the council to consider. We'll need to do essentially another vote to award someone a professional service contract for that at a future meeting, but I can give I give the council some recommendations just to.
Thank you.
For that.
Roll call, please.
Councilwoman Goldberg,
Yes.
Councilman Pagan,
Yes.
Councilwoman G,
Yes.
Councilman Katz, Deputy Mayor Belcher,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Organ,
Yes.
Mayor Schwartz.
Yes.
We'll hear back from our attorney.
Next, proposed resolution, amended resolution regarding subcommittees, council members Goldberg and Pagan.
So I'm not going to read this. This is the changes that were discussed last meeting regarding the subcommittees. Pretty much everything in here from the discussion between myself, Councilmember G, and Belcher is in here. I think everyone had a chance to read it. If there's any additional suggestions, otherwise I'd like to move this to the consent agenda.
Second.
Suggestions you had? It was.
Yeah, can we discuss this again?
Yes. Yeah, Councilmember.
Yeah, do you
Yes.
want to start? Okay, yeah, just a couple of things. I think we're getting close. That's good news. One of the issues that I think we had was, and I wanted to tweak, was the timeline between the requirement of minutes being produced from the end of a subcommittee meeting. And we just felt that because of the fact that none of us have administrative support, that we would either A, ask the town manager to assign an administrative point person, in particular for the zoning subcommittees, because the nature of the discussions in zoning is so important. So not to say the other committees are not, that we feel as if we want to relegate that the task of capturing minutes by a town person. Okay, so that's one thing that we definitely want. We don't feel, I feel as if even our chair who's chairing the meeting, it's kind of hard to capture minutes when you're chairing. So if our town manager could really advise us on that. I would feel the same for even the affordable housing, although I feel that we're not in subcommittee any longer. We've relegated our responsibility. We're in the compliance stage of what we have to do. But even if we were, or the next time a subcommittee on affordable housing convenes, I would recommend as well that a township attorney, that a township person, administrative person that has the skill set to take minutes would be given that responsibility. So that's one of the things. I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues to add anything else.
So in my ideal world, we would figure out a solution that we could, all 7 agree on. One of the concerns I heard from colleagues was that the subcommittee meetings, if held in public 100% of the time, there wouldn't be as much comfort, or the discussions, people would be so discouraged from participating that they would take conversations offline, which I think is problematic, right? We want to be able to do the work of the subcommittee without concern of folks just not wanting to be in the subcommittees anymore because they can't have conversations around things that they believe should be in closed session comfortably. So that is concern. So if we can't figure out a way to do this that we all agree on, and then people stop doing subcommittees, then that doesn't solve the issue. So I wonder if there's another way. I largely support this as written, but I know that not everybody else does. I did like the idea of allowing the chair some grace to, decide if there were topics without the 5 days necessarily notice that needed to go into close. Not everyone has the OPMA rules memorized in their heads, and so they might need some ability to close as needed. And I brought this up last time. Personnel, for example, I think should always be closed. And then finally, I wanted to propose a suggestion and get some feedback from the rest of you. What if all of the meetings were open? We start off open, we very clearly state what the agenda is, and then move into closed, have the subcommittee meeting, come out of closed, and very specifically, right after the closed meeting, share with the public publicly, go back into public session, exactly what was discussed, immediately provide minutes so that there's no waiting 5 days. The public gets the summary right there on Zoom immediately, instead of having to wait for minutes, and any additional topics that were covered would be shared right then after the meeting. So that's my suggestion as an alternative, if all 7 could get around that.
So I'm not so strong either way, but I just, and as I mentioned at the last meeting, this is like altruistic and, doesn't sound like there's anything really wrong with this. But, I'd just like to talk about some of the meetings that I'm familiar with in the last couple of weeks where we did the subcommittee, and just tell me practical application. When we showed up to the county executive with a meeting and we had 20 residents, how do we explain that? They're like, oh, we travel with them? Or during the sensitive time when we were negotiating with the swim club, where the subcommittee did a spectacular job being very sensitive to the needs of the members. How do we explain the 20 residents sitting there? Or during personnel interviews. So like, while it sounds really wonderful, either we're trying to cripple government progress, which is not good for any resident, or it's just, an attempt to make a political statement publicly and say, oh, these people are against transparency. No, I think some of us that are saying that this is silly are against not moving forward properly. So if you can address how we would show up to the meeting with FDU and say, oh, by the way, these are our 20 residents that we travel with, and try to get progress, then I'm in favor of it. But otherwise, I think we should leave it to the subcommittee chair to use his or her discretion of when we should have these open meetings. I don't see a successful negotiation like you did with the swim club with 20 residents sitting there. I just don't see it. And you guys did a great job. So that's just my comment.
What subcommittee met with FDU?
Subcommittee was just.
It was a hypothetical. It was the manager, myself, and as reported.
So I would like to make a motion that we do a task force of myself, Deputy Mayor Belcher, and Councilwoman G to discuss this and hammer this out once and for all. This was emailed to people. This was on the agenda. I think that we can actually do it, and I'm happy to take minutes.
I'll second that for a roll call.
Can I suggest that someone who, because the 3 of us are kind of mostly aligned, should we not have someone on that task force who feels
Doesn't want it at all and wants
Yeah,
to squash the whole thing? No,
exactly.
because I don't want to have, I don't want it at all.
because then we're not going to find a solution that works for everyone.
Right. The solution is I hope we don't pay a lot of money for this red tape that we're
So
creating.
I'm gonna
So-
step off of the task force and allow someone else to raise their
I'm
hand.
not going to be on the task force. It's something I don't agree with. I think it's a very healthy conversation if that's what you want to have, but I don't want to partake in that conversation.
It's just not practical, as you heard some of the.
Okay. Do the 3 of you agree to that? Is that a change? in the
Works for
motion?
me. So I'll make the motion that the task force of me, Councilman Pagan, and Deputy Mayor Belcher, and I will take the minutes to figure this out once and for
And
all.
I'd like to request that that's an open task force and we invite 20 residents.
with the minutes or repercussions.
Actually, it actually
Repercussions.
says in here, I mean, most of the meetings that I've been to, I mean, most of it's on Zoom, so I don't know, but it's,
problem.
I addressed all of the concerns, but I think I'm
Understood.
making the motion on the task force.
There's a second, I'll second that if it wasn't a second, and a roll call, Mr. Clerk. Yeah, it was seconded by myself. It was myself. SCH.
Councilwoman Goldberg,
Yes.
Councilman Pagan. Councilwoman G,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor, Councilman Katz.
Yeah, I'm in favor of the subcommittee. I just think it's kind of comical. We're creating a subcommittee to have a private meeting about having a public subcommittee. So go for it. Let's do it.
Yes, from Councilman Katz. Deputy Mayor Belcher,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Organ,
No.
Mayor Schwartz.
No. Okay, so that the task force will meet. I look forward to a 5-day notice on that meeting and minutes produced promptly thereafter. Township managers report.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, council and township residents. As some of you may have been informed on social media, our Leonia neighbors experienced a tragic condo fire that displaced several residents from their homes. Leonia continues to accept donations through the Leonia Community Chest, which I have posted on our website and social media. This is the only donations that are being accepted as of now, and they have thanked our community for our generosity. As an update for our compost pilot program, we have signed the agreement for a 6-month pilot program and invite our Teaneck residents to sign up on our website. The program will officially begin on April 1st, and the location for our compost totes will be in the overflow parking lot by the Rhoda Center. The link for resident sign up is located on the front page of our website. Thank you once again to the Environmental Commission for your hard work on this project for our community. Please be advised that our snow shoveling services offered by the forum is at capacity, so they are unable to pair additional students and seniors at this time. We do extend our sincere gratitude to the forum and the students for their organization and participation. The township is launching a code enforcement pilot program at the request of the Northeast Block Presidents Association that was met previously. This will begin on March 1st. Our health department will be assisting with this request. We will be distributing a trifold informational pamphlet. It will be provided to the businesses and the residents as an educational program. Our inspectors will be monitoring this area for compliance and a comprehensive report in about 6 months. Last meeting, we spoke about a resident request for Far Side bus stops to be inspected and relocated on West Englewood Avenue. I have since asked our police department to further research this request and provide their recommendations. They are in contact with NJ Transit and awaiting further discussion and response. I will plan to report next meeting on their findings. Our Teaneck Pool Subcommittee and department heads met with the swim club in reference to our collaboration for changeover of the property. All township departments are on task for renovation, maintenance, repairs, and summer scheduling to share with everyone in the coming weeks. I am also pleased to report that the NJDEP has reviewed and modified the lease agreement for access to Sagamore Park for our detention tank construction and installation project. This 2-year lease agreement will begin as of April 1st and is listed on our agenda this evening. This agreement gives us immediate access to the property for this active project. The township will also be hosting a community meeting, which was mentioned by the mayor. It will be scheduled in April, and it will focus on the proposed development for 827 Teaneck Road, previously Regina's Steakhouse. A flyer with details will be posted, and all are welcome to attend. Our library project continues to move forward due to some asbestos remediation. The project does have a delay of about 100 days, and we are now looking for this project to be completed around late September into October. We are moving the project along as quickly as possible, and I'll keep you updated as any changes come about. Moving to our project updates, Fike Lane, the project plans and specifications were approved by DOT, and we're awaiting approval for purchasing and to go out to bid. Argonne Park Tennis Courts, the design is complete, and we are also waiting to go out to bid as well. The Phelps Park Splash Pad preliminary design is complete. Final design is in progress. Sagamore Park improvements, we are coordinating with various park vendors to finalize our plans. And our 2024 road resurfacing program is, the preliminary plans are complete and we are working on final design. The Andreas Park Pickleball Courts pre-construction meeting was held earlier this month and construction is scheduled for later this month. Bell Ave Drainage Project, we are progressing with the lease agreement, diversion permit, and compensation proposal. Design work for detention system remains in progress. Bell Ave Rain Garden, we are finalizing that design as well, and we are collaborating with Rutgers University. Lastly, Ramadan Mubarak to those celebrating in our community. I was pleased to hear that your celebration at the Rhoda Center went well last evening. Friendly reminder, please sign up for township alerts on the front page of our website. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mrs. Manager. Mr. Attorney, any report from you?
Nothing tonight for me, Mr. Mayor.
Excellent. And with that, there is no ordinances tonight. So we'll head into the good and welfare. I don't think there's anyone to speak, so we'll just move on. Good and welfare. I'll start with everyone in the room that will head to Zoom thereafter. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Please come up, state your name, please speak, direct your comments to me, please speak respectfully and raise your hands and we'll start. Gentleman in the back.
Good evening, Council. My name is Adam Dalesman. I'm the president and commissioner of the Teaneck Baseball Organization, better known throughout town as TBO. Before I begin, I just want to thank everyone on the Fields Advisory Board, all of whom have given their time freely to be on the board, and it's very, very much appreciated. Deputy Mayor Organ, as you mentioned, one of the more important things any town can provide to those who live there are places to play sports, live healthy lives together, especially when it comes to children. TBO is so grateful for everything that you all have done for us, all the work that's been done to improve fields over the years, but unfortunately, there is still a lot of work to be done. Every season, TBO provides children in Teaneck with a rec league in which they can play baseball or softball, ranging from pre-K through 8th grade. So we do need a lot of fields, and thankfully, again, our relationship has been great, and you've been able to provide us a lot of those fields. But Councilman Pagan, as you mentioned, a lot of our parents actually played TBO when they were kids, and they all say the same thing. The fields, for the most part, feel very similar to what they were then. That goes especially for middle field. Middle field has been our most problematic field. Year after year, it seems like we've had to cancel more games at middle than we've been able to play. Last year, due to rains and then the flooding that ensued after, we were unable to use middle for the entire season. This proposed fix will help us be able to use a field that right now sits unused most of the time. This will provide more games and provide more sports activities for us, as well as for the Teaneck youth across all the sports and the town youth leagues. So again, I just want to thank you all for your time. Thank you for creating the Sports Advisory Board, and thank you all for considering this exciting fix to middle.
Thank you, and thank you for your help on the volunteering on the TBO. I was remiss, I didn't call any clergy up first. Is any clergy in the room that like to speak? No. Okay, see no clergy hands. Unless Mr. Rosie became a clergyman, come on up.
Good evening, Howard Rose, Teaneck resident. A number of things. You opened the meeting discussing redevelopment plans, sort of hoping that you might also add to that something regarding a functional utilitarian housing authority. What a benefit that would be to Teaneck residents, and it would skew housing in the future more towards people who live here, not just the rest of the county. Well, the rest of the county in general. Goodness. Demonstrations. I use the word impromptu. What about impromptu areas? I seem to be getting, but I'd like to hear some more definition next meeting, perhaps, if not tonight. It sounds as if people can gather, speak, demonstrate in parks more easily, and that makes sense because it's out of the way of the general public and their interactions on the streets and sidewalks and whatnot. But when you talk about permits, 9 o'clock in the evening, I have 300 people who I know who want to demonstrate. Where do I go to get a permit at 9 o'clock in the evening? Is that through the police department? Is that through the manager's office? Is it accessible? Is it doable? Or are we putting an implicit barrier towards doing something impromptu at certain points in time? Subcommittees. I'm getting the feeling that transparency, again, is still a consideration that's not being given its due. I'm picking up that sometimes council members might be less comfortable discussing their true feelings and reality in public. Well, that doesn't make sense to me. I'd like to know your true feelings and what you're really thinking in public. If it has to be clandestine to be said, it probably shouldn't be said at all. I realize that there are areas of personnel, et cetera, that of course have to be non-public, but that can be determined. I'd like to see a balance between transparency and secretive. That's really good. We talked about the swim club, and I keep mentioning that I'd like to see it go west towards the river. I'm still surprised. I realize it's a wetland, it's a whatever, and maybe there's a balance where they could have a raised deck that you walk along near it that doesn't interfere. Again, the word balance. What can be done to accommodate the living? I mean, adjacent to the swim club, we celebrate the dead. Why don't we celebrate the living with the utilization of the land adjacent to the Hackensack River? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rose. Anybody else like to speak? Ma'am?
Valerie Levin, Teaneck resident. Want to thank the board for their service. And also Mayor Schwartz and Ms. Hashmat, thank you for responding to my emails about not getting my little section of Alvin Street plowed. I appreciate the prompt response. I won't say how, but I've had a chance to go peek in what's going on at Herrick Park in the playground, and I'm very excited with the progress there. Our newer residents in the South of Cedar community, I don't know that they're even going to be able to fully appreciate what looks like it's going to be an amazing playground. With regards to the ordinance on protests and gatherings, I was there, I was in the mix of it. I think these were necessary changes that had to happen, and I hope it's going to be a smooth process to get the ordinance passed as worded. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Levin. Nice shirt.
What's that shirt say, Valerie?
Did everyone see it? It says, "No one appreciates the clerk's office." Okay, that's
Turn
clerk.
around for him, Don't encourage him.
Thank you very much. Sir?
Thank you. Good evening, Wasim Kanan, Wayne, New Jersey. Good evening. I'm here to discuss the protest ordinance also, particularly just to address one, okay, now two, I just remembered one more. I'll say, to start with Councilman Pagan answering your question in regard to ordinance 31B-9 subsection H. This ordinance is broadly arbitrary. And prohibition is prima facie a constitutional violation, and it represents a content-based restriction on speech that the Supreme Court has repeatedly struck down. So I appreciated the conversation this evening very much. And so I would like to put onto the record and say first and foremost, I'm reading from a letter served to the council via email and in paper today that was prepared by the PAL Commission. And so it's not my legal research, but in that letter that was given to you, the very specific sites are in the letter. If you go to page 2, apologies. Page 2, the fourth paragraph down, the cases being cited in that letter are Reed v. the Town of Gilbert, McCullen v. Cookley, And again, the full citations are in the letter. If someone hasn't received it, please indicate and we'll make sure that it is delivered. And Carrie V. Brown. So for your consideration moving forward on that matter, I ask that you research that case law and consider it as the existing case law establishing that such actions are in fact unconstitutional. Thank you.
Thank you. Chair Brown? And thank you for your help on the planning board, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mayor Schwartz and members of council. Just here, quick comments. Appreciate having the lease agreement for Sagamore Park on tonight's agenda. It's again, a long time coming, and we look forward to construction happening at some point on Sagamore this year. And it's great that we are using this loophole that is within NJDP's regulations to move forward with the project, and expedite the diversion process, I would say. Generally speaking, we shouldn't have to do that. Generally speaking, it is a township park. We should be allowed to have stormwater improvements on township land and not have to go through all of this headache. But this is where we are. NJDP rules are very ridiculous in this respect. And at some point, the legislature needs to get on it with amending DEP's rules, the Green Acres rules, to allow communities that are affected by climate change and more extreme rainfall events and other various conditions to address or to mitigate those impacts using our parks and green spaces. So that's something for the future if you have a line to an elected official at the state level. But thank you very much for moving this forward. Thank you, Manager Hashmat, for all your help so far. So thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you very much. Robert Friedman.
Good evening to everybody. Thank you very much to all the members of council for your service and to the town manager. It's wonderful to be together with friends and neighbors. When the gentleman from Wayne got up to speak about the letter from the Powell Commission, it reminded me of when individuals from that same commission came to slam on my front door, wake up my two-year-old child, serving me with cease and desist papers for saying that there is a religious component to the Jewish connection to the land of Israel. That was only a week after they did the same thing outside of my synagogue. I received a letter via email that all of you received that we were told that there will be peace in Teaneck when the Jewish community stops celebrating the sacrifice of members of the Israel Defense Forces, when the Jewish community stops honoring those individuals who bury the martyrs who were murdered on October 7th, when the Jewish community stops offering opportunities for people to fulfill the religious obligation of purchasing land in the land that we consider to be the Holy Land. The Jewish community has been harassed over and again, and this council lacks urgency with respect to this issue. I was very surprised in a meeting regarding this issue that it was simply not known by one of the members that there were essentially riots in Brooklyn last week for events that take place right here in Teaneck, in a Jewish neighborhood that was targeted for these very reasons, the same kinds of activities that have gone on here for over a year and a half. I have congregants who on multiple occasions ask me, is it safe to go outside? Can we safely come to the synagogue? We pay in aggregate over $1 million between all of the synagogues and the day schools for our security. It is enough. The Jewish community has had enough. We don't have to live in hiding. Jewish communities should be able to advertise their events safely. We are not going to be told any longer that we can't have events that are essential to our religious practice. Bergenfield had one protest. They passed the ordinance that was considered tonight materially 5-0. 5-0. They had one event, one protest, they passed it right away. The same United States Constitution that governs Bergenfield governs Teaneck. It is astonishing to me that we are still here, that we lack this urgency, that the Jewish community, which was told repeatedly that we have your back, that we see you, that we hear you, was met with the response that it was tonight. I hope we can move forward expeditiously. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi. Ma'am?
Yes, I appreciate that you guys understand.
your name?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Tova Fry. I'm from West Orange. And I am not only member of the Jewish community, but strongly disagree and an anti-Zionist Jew whose grandparents were killed during the Holocaust. And that's not what they died for, is what this gentleman before me just talked about. So I want to say that this ordinance that you guys rightfully understood had constitutional questions and needs to be further studied before you try to proceed with it, is overall very broadly, and I'm reading from this PAL Commission on War Crimes letter here that you guys received, it's very broadly interpreted, this ordinance, so that the constitutional measures that you guys are stamping on here are just outrageous. And the broad and arbitrary prohibition is prima facie unconstitutional and represents a content-based restriction on speech that the Supreme Court has repeatedly struck down. The ordinance violates the Reed versus the town of Gilbert that the other gentleman already spoke to. The ordinance violates McCullen versus Coatley and also Kerry versus Brown. And the government cannot impose restrictions on speech that are based on subject matter, viewpoint, and identity of the speaker. And as far as the Jewish community being threatened here, if they would stop having stolen land sales, illegal stolen land sales in synagogues, then there would be no need to have these protests. But it's actually the illegal sale of stolen Palestinian land that is the reason that these protests have happened. And they hide them in synagogues to try to restrict the attendance to people who are validated through their Jewish orthodoxy that they can attend, which is a violation of civil rights and real estate law, for them to restrict the attendance at these events, these illegal sale events. But while there's a genocide going on in Palestine, the people here continue to try to sell stolen Palestinian land illegally and hiding them in the synagogues and in Jewish centers and other places. That's the only reason those protests happen there. If they had the protest at a public hall, then we would be protesting in the public hall.
Thank you, Mrs. Fry. Sir?
Good evening, Mayor, council members. My name is David Bildner, and I'm a Teaneck resident.
Raise it up.
Very
Sorry,
good.
yeah.
Okay. David Bildner, Teaneck resident. And I think that the previous speaker made the point very well, that the reason that we need an ordinance regarding demonstrations is not because of an attempt to reduce free speech, but an attempt to reduce intimidation and threats that are an attempt to disrupt people's ability to express their First Amendment rights. And I think that one of the problems with many of the people who have objected to this ordinance is that they haven't read it. There's talk about it being viewpoint discrimination. I have read the ordinance, and it is content neutral. This is an attempt, among other things, to give clear guidance to the law enforcement agencies, which is very important. I'm an attorney. One of the things that I know, even as a defense attorney, is that police need clear guidance as to what they're allowed to do, what the rules are that they're supposed to be enforcing. And I think that this is a measured attempt to balance competing interests so that people are allowed to express their First Amendment rights while at the same time not be intimidated or harassed in their attempts to go about their daily lives and to have peace and quiet in residential areas at night, or to be able to have activities in their houses of worship, which is also a First Amendment right. And therefore, I expected that I was going to be here to enjoy seeing the council supporting this proposal, and I'm a little disappointed that it hasn't happened. But I am hoping that after the attempt, after the ability for further reflection and further advice from outside counsel, that perhaps that will provide more, that will give people better perspective, and we'll be able to revisit the issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Mr. Kanjorowitz? Next.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the council. Thank you for your time and your participation. I have a couple of comments. First, as a longtime TBO.
Name for the
code-
record, I'm sorry.
Excuse me?
Name for the record, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
I'm sorry. Jeffrey Kantowitz, 158 Marison Street, Teaneck, New Jersey. As a longtime,
Sorry, we're pausing the clock for you.
fan doesn't want me to speak.
No. Yeah, just turn it off. Sorry, guys. Sorry, give it just a second.
You're going to turn that off and then listen to my hot air?
No. We're constantly improving council chambers, forgive us. Sorry. Oh, God.
It's okay.
Go ahead, it's all you.
It's okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Mayor, and members of the council. I have 3 points to make tonight. Number one, congratulations on moving forward on the Votee Park redevelopment of the ball fields. I'll only make one observation, and I credit the speaker before and the TBO about all of his work. Can we please get a couple of batting cages? Everybody who does baseball coaches, and I've coached for 10 years, will tell you every other town has batting cages. Aprita has batting cages. It is sorely, sorely, sorely lacking. And I would like to suggest that who's ever working on that committee and getting into the details, find somewhere to put batting cages in the corner of the field. Second, I echo Rabbi Friedman's comments about disappointment in the lack of moving forward. I'm not a constitutional scholar. I'm just a regular lawyer. And these things are very shaded. And at the end of the day, what 5 people in the Supreme Court say is constitutional is constitutional. We can all debate it, but I don't see why it couldn't have been moved forward at least. And then in the interim, get a constitutional specialist to look at it, render an opinion, and move forward. And the third thing I'm going to say is this, and I was not expecting to it. I'm a proud Jew. I'm a proud American. I refuse to sit silently in a public forum and use the word genocide, misused, misrepresented, having to do with the conflict going on in the Middle East for the last 16 months. I will not sit silent. I will express my opinion and tell you that anybody of any measure of modicum, and it's my opinion, of experience and understanding of the international human rights definition of genocide knows that there is no genocide going on. I did not plan to say that tonight, but I just will not sit silently by and hear that thrown around. Thank you.
My name is Elliot Berman. I'm a lawyer. I have lived in Teaneck with my wife for almost 30 years, and I've raised my 3 children here. I'd like to thank the township manager and the Teaneck Police Department for protecting the township. I'd also like to thank the council for giving of your time to make Teaneck the best town it could be. Almost a year ago, on March 19th, 2024, I spoke, albeit on Zoom, at a township council meeting. You could look it up on YouTube at around 3 hours and 20 minutes into the meeting. It was around 11:20 p.m. I said then, quote, "I think you will all agree with me that something has to change. Teaneck should not be exposed to what it was subjected to on Sunday, March 10th, and the threat that anything like that will continue in our residential neighborhoods and outside houses of worship. Close quote. As I'm sure you remember, on March 10th, 2024, there was an anti-Semitic protest staged outside a synagogue in Teaneck. As I am sure you also know, that shortly thereafter, on April 1st, 2024, there was another anti-Semitic protest held outside another synagogue in Teaneck. Back on March 19th, 2024, I said that I recognize that in America, we must make sacrifices for the freedom of speech, and that uninformed, senseless, hurtful, and even vile speech is also protected. But I respectfully asked the council over 11 months ago to, quote, call upon the township's attorney to find a way to return peace to the residential streets and the houses of worship in Teaneck. I said then that the United States Supreme Court has repeatedly stated that the government may impose time, place, and manner restrictions on speech in a public forum. Of course, the restrictions need to be content neutral, such that Teaneck could not prevent demonstrations that do not incite violence, that support the KKK, Hamas, or other organizations deemed by the United States and other countries around the world to be terrorist organizations. But residential neighborhoods and outside houses of worship are not the places for demonstrations. The town green and other public spaces could be used. I said then that the United States Supreme Court has said that noise, traffic control, and public safety are all content neutral reasons to impose restrictions as on where speech may occur. As the Third Circuit, the federal appellate court that covers New Jersey has stated, quote, the right of free speech does not encompass the right to cause disruption. I now see today that an ordinance was discussed that imposes well-accepted time, place, and manner restrictions for marches, protests, and other large gatherings on Teaneck's public streets and sidewalks, specifically protecting houses of worship and private residences from being targeted and harassed. So I came here to say it's a little late, but better late than never, and urge the council to unanimously advance this ordinance to a final vote as soon as possible. As we heard tonight, Teaneck should be known for Salif Main, world record holder in the triple jump, and not for protests that target houses of worship and private residences. Thank you.
Sure. Ms. Horowitz?
Good evening, Council. Emma Horowitz, Teaneck resident. The failure of this council to introduce the time, place, and manner ordinance tonight is deeply unfortunate. Akiva Shapiro, a renowned constitutional expert who worked on this ordinance, is sitting here in the audience tonight. The idea that he is not independent is bizarre, and I have to wonder to whom anyone thinks he is beholden. Is this because he graciously volunteered his time and did the work on this ordinance pro bono? Further, is there any credible argument that this ordinance is unconstitutional? I have not heard one to date from a credible source, but I have heard many armchair constitutional lawyers weigh in here and on social media, similar to the armchair public health experts we all got to know and love during COVID, with generalities, misleading statements, and innuendo. I wonder what this delay will cost us in terms of the public trust and public safety, to say nothing of what any additional cost to the township will be. Constitutional lawyers don't come cheap, and rejecting one willing to work for free because you are looking for an excuse to reject an important ordinance that Teaneck needs strikes me as setting a dangerous precedent. I hope that whatever unspecified issues members of this council had with this ordinance will be resolved to your satisfaction very soon. I remember standing outside a synagogue in March 2024, listening to people call for my death and the deaths of my family and friends. I stood with two of the council members here tonight. There was a sense of urgency that day to help Teaneck's Jewish community express our First Amendment rights to assemble and worship freely and without harassment. What has happened to that sense of urgency if this has been under discussion for months already? Did this idea just occur tonight? And if so, why is that? Public safety and preserving the rights of your constituents are simply the most basic parts of your job, and your electorate is watching. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Horowitz. Anybody else like to speak? Ms. Rogovan?
Paula Rogovan. The Teaneck Peace and Justice Vigil calls on this council to reject the proposed changes in the Teaneck's protest ordinance. In the proposed ordinance, the term special event includes any parade, walkathon, bikeathon, or jogging group, block party, march, assembly, I'm reading from the ordinance, demonstration, protest, or other organized group having a common purpose or goal, proceeding along a public street, a public sidewalk, or other public right-of-way in the township of Teaneck. We see this proposed ordinance at this time as intimidation, no different from the intimidation we're seeing coming from the Musk-Trump administration. We see it as an attempt to silence not all voices, but only certain voices, voices with whom you disagree. Protest comes in all different forms. In Teaneck, it has been through art, music, vigils, dance concerts, marches, walks, car caravans, and elections. That's what so many of us love about Teaneck. There have been many, many gatherings immediately after events, such as the horrific slaughter at the synagogue in Pittsburgh or the killing of Philip Pinnell in Teaneck. It would be unreasonable to have people wait 10 days to get a permit to have such a demonstration protesting these horrible, horrible events. I'm the co-founder of the Teaneck Peace and Justice Vigil, which will hold our 1020th consecutive Wednesday vigil tomorrow at the corner of Teaneck Road and Liberty Road. At our early vigils in 2005, many people shouted out from their cars and called us unpatriotic. Some gave us the middle finger. Once public learned that there had been no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, that changed, and public support for our call. Public support grew for a call to support the troops, bring them home from Iraq and Afghanistan, and take care of them when they got here. We continue our call for peace, for stopping deportations, for stopping cuts to veteran services at the VA, services for those very same veterans who were in those wars, those in Iraq and Afghanistan and earlier wars. Our vigil never had a permit. We are peace-loving and peaceful. Rain, excessive heat, and snow do not stop our quest for peace and justice. People who don't agree with our message are free to talk with us or shout out.
Thank you, Mr. Orban. Thank you. Mr. Berliner?
Josh Berliner, I'm a Teaneck resident. Thank you, council members, and thank you, neighbors. Picking up on Rabbi Friedman's words of sacrifice, today, February 25th, represents a grim anniversary for our township. If anybody knows, February 25th? February 25th, 29 years ago today, Teaneck resident Sarah Duker was murdered by Palestinian terrorists from the internationally recognized terrorist group Hamas, a team that included Mohammed Abu Warda. Duker, then 23, was with her boyfriend, 25-year-old Matthew Eisenfeld of Connecticut, when a suicide bomber, actually Abu Warda's own cousin that he recruited, detonated an explosion that ripped through the bus they were riding on Jerusalem's Jaffa Road. The couple were studying in Israel for the year and on their way to see Petra, a historic city in southern Jordan. Israeli authorities say the bombing, which killed 26 people, was orchestrated by Mohammed Abu Warda. He was captured in 2002 and sentenced for that incident and a second bus attack that left 19 others dead. Fast forward to today. Earlier this month, Abu Warda was released as part of the ceasefire announced between Israel and Hamas. At the Gaza Carnival last week, broadcast to the world by the Al Jazeera network, Abu Warda was honored with a seat on stage to cheer the paraded coffins of Oded Lifshitz, Ariel Bibas, Kafir Bibas, and an unidentified Gazan woman as they were loaded into the back of a Red Cross van. Abu Warda was interviewed at the event where he expressed enthusiastic commitment to continue his macabre hobby I hope his misplaced enthusiasm does not compromise the ceasefire that so many Teaneck residents and non-resident protesters so vociferously hoped for around our town. But back to Sarah. Sarah Duker graduated from Barnard College in 1995. While at Barnard, Sarah was an active community member and worked as a tutor at PS 125, where she taught reading to 3rd and 4th graders. Sarah was a lover of peace and justice and wanted everyone to be treated with respect. She was a talented writer and scientist with a wide range of intellectual interests. Sarah was awarded departmental honors in environmental science and was elected to Phi Beta Kappa. A statue in her memory was erected outside the Teaneck Library to educate residents about her life and memorialize her forever. Outsiders come into our town, intimidate residents, impede movement, and spread hate. They want us to forget, but we will never forget. My heart breaks for our family. My heart breaks for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blair. Anybody else like to speak? Ma'am?
Good evening. My name is Yehudit Robinson, and I live with my husband and children in Teaneck. I'm here in person to implore you to bring the proposed ordinance for time, place, and manner of protests to this esteemed chamber to protect all residents. Since October 7th, I have experienced a level of fear here that I never had before. It is the fear of not knowing when outside agitators will come to Teaneck, not knowing how many will join, and not knowing whether their threats might translate to physical action. There have been too many times that I have avoided certain streets at certain times of day and have kept my kids cloistered inside the house on sunny days just to be safe. On those days, I have also had to ask my husband to consider covering his yarmulke with a baseball cap just to be safe. Several months ago, I stood with hundreds of Teaneck residents outside of B'nai Yeshua in a Teaneck synagogue, staring in disbelief at non-residents who came to agitate about international matters not outside the United Nations or offices of government officials, but rather against the local Jewish community, even though they knew we lacked the power to control foreign affairs. The agitators disturbed a quiet residential neighborhood in the evening, disrupting parents putting their kids to bed. There are respectful ways of celebrating First Amendment freedoms, including the right to protest, that protect all residents. The proposed ordinance is modeled on one that was created in Hackensack in 2021. A similar ordinance was introduced in Bergenfield last week. Please continue to consult with constitutional specialists to ensure that the proposed ordinance fully meets everyone's needs. I'm pleading with the town council to also enforce requirements for protesters to obtain permits. Unfortunately, there were too many times that outside agitators did not abide by this basic requirement. Please keep in mind that the police overtime fees are ultimately going to be passed down to us residents, but none of the outside agitators are footing the bills that are required to keep us residents safe. Let us unite as a community and find safe, legal, First Amendment, constitutionally approved ways for those who wish to protest to gather in a way that honors our community's values of basic decency and neighborliness. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. Anybody else like to speak? Ms. Shields?
Good evening, Mayor Schwartz and council members. My name is Hannah Shields and I'm a Teaneck resident. I thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. For those who have been watching the seemingly well-coordinated attempt this week on social media and tonight to sabotage this ordinance based on misinformation, I would like to clarify the misinformation you are hearing. It seems that our township attorney was put on the spot earlier. The attorney's draft of the ordinance was revised based on council input, just like they would do for any other ordinance. He also consulted with attorney Akiva Shapiro, who's a First Amendment expert at Gibson Dunn. The township didn't hire him because he offered his services pro bono. And no, it won't affect your backyard movie nights or fire pits or your small running groups. Larger activities were already included in the existing ordinance on file. And no, the case some speakers pulled from Google was not the same as it contained content-based restrictions, which this does not. What it will do is prevent harassment of minority groups and religious groups. When it comes to the support of a community, it is not about publishing articles, writing letters, and making speeches about your advocacy. Action speaks louder than words. When did we become a society that is only concerned with protecting the rights of the bully instead of the targeted? I've heard claims by a lot of non-lawyers this week that this opens us up to lawsuits, and I want to address that. I'm not a lawyer either, but I do know that any law can open a township up to lawsuits. If we were to abstain from putting any ordinance on the books because a group will sue, then we will have a lawless society. In fact, Bergenfield unanimously introduced a very similar ordinance last week. People will claim it's a different ordinance, but I challenge you to actually read them both for yourselves and not to believe people's unsubstantiated comments. I head up a group that was formed in the aftermath of October 7th to combat the anti-Semitism with which our community has been targeted. We sent a letter encouraging council to pass this ordinance because it will protect our community as well as any other community who is targeted by people who want to impinge upon their rights. At the same time, we will always keep our hand outstretched to any group that wants to have an honest conversation and work towards harmony, and we appreciate those who have already done so. In closing, I would like to make something crystal clear. The people who came here to object to the ordinance aren't here because of First Amendment rights. They are here because they want to preserve the right to harass a community based on that community's beliefs and identity. If they are allowed to continue to do so, this puts every community at risk. This puts every minority at risk. It puts you at risk.
Anybody else like to speak? Councilman Kaplan?
Thank you, Mayor Schwartz and Council. Keith Kaplan, Teaneck resident. You know, there's a lot of hypocrisy that I've shown over time for several people that come up here to this microphone. You're in favor of free speech, so the ordinance has to go. When I came to this microphone and I condemned the people that drove through this town in cars emblazoned with "Globalize the Intifada," the mere mention of Jihadi Jane was enough to make them condemn me. I could not speak the words. Free speech for everybody, except when it's something we don't like. The Intifada that they wanted to globalize is what killed Sarah Duker, who the resident spoke about a little earlier. It was on the bus to my cousin's house. I was there the year she died, blown to smithereens. That's what they are celebrating. And you know what? It's America. They're allowed to celebrate it. They're allowed to follow suicidal death cults and cheer for them. But you have a right to pray at a synagogue. You have a right to pray at a mosque. You have a right to pray at a church, and you have a right to do it under the First Amendment. It's a codified right of free expression to pray. And you can't do that if someone is standing next to you and screaming. Someone screams in this council room right now and shuts me down, they get kicked out of this meeting because you're not allowed to shut someone down while they have the floor. You have the floor in a synagogue. You're supposed to be able to pray there. This ordinance, if you actually read the damn words in it, says if you make a disruption. A person outside holding up a sign is not disrupting. A person with a megaphone so that you can't hear inside is. That's what this ordinance is made to do. You say you're for free speech. In NAACP v. Claiborne, the Supreme Court said when the field secretary told the members of the NAACP, if we catch you going into any of them racist stores, we're going to break your damn neck. Well, you know what? They said that's free speech. Are you going to come up here and say this ordinance prohibits free speech? But if I say anyone who says that, you should break their damn neck, will you defend me? Because the fact is you hate free speech. You're in favor of suicidal death cults. And like I said, It's America. You can do that. It's my job to shout you down because you're in favor of suicidal death cults, but you're not allowed to get rid of an ordinance that merely prevents disruption at a house of worship.
Thank you. Anybody else in chambers? Mr. Siegel?
Hello, my name is David Siegel. I'm a resident for about 30 years. First, I'd like to say that I want to thank the council for everything that you do. Just addressing the ordinance for a moment. Obviously, the decision is to go to another constitutional lawyer to get an opinion. I just encourage you to do that ASAP so we can move forward and address the substance of the ordinance rather than that issue. And obviously, you see that it's important to so many people, as I'm sure it's important to you as well, so that if you can address that quickly, so that we can move on and get that passed. On another note, I just want to mention that, as I said, I've been here for 30 years. I coached my children in TBO. I'm coaching my granddaughter in TBO this summer, and appreciate that everything that TNEC does to keep the fields dry is appreciated. And we appreciate all the work that you're doing and that you're going to continue to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Siegel. Anybody else in chambers like to speak? Seeing no hands, we'll turn that over to Zoom. Mr. Clerk, the floor is yours. No one.
We are bringing in Ellie Katz.
Oh, great.
Whoa, sir.
Most people don't want to bring him in. They'd like to show him the door.
Yeah. What's your middle initial, Ellie Katz?
Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
What is it?
Good evening, council. My name is Ellie, not Y Katz. I am a resident of TNEC.
He's the more popular Ellie Katz.
I'd like to first thank the TNEC Police Department for their continued dedication to protect and serve the residents of TNEC. I'd also like to thank you, members of council, for your dedication to protecting our community and the TNEC way of life. I've spoken before this and prior councils in the past to request the continued development, support, protection, and everything else that makes TNEC a place that we all call home. Private events, houses of worship, religious or even secular groups should not have to hide and seek outside protection to live their lives. This ordinance has been a long time coming, regardless of race, religion, sexual orientation, none of that matters. The moment an individual or a group decide to impede the rights of private citizens and impose risks upon the public is where issues, risks, and liabilities arise. Your efforts in producing this ordinance demonstrate a strong commitment to the safety and well-being of all residents, and I implore you to push this ordinance through to continue to prevent disruption to the TNEC way of life, just like Bergenfield and many other public bodies have done so. I have no issue with demonstrations, parades, or collective groups doing their thing. Go for it. Just do it the right way with approvals, protections from liability, risk, and even more importantly, hate. Enough with the harassment. Hate has no place in TNEC. We truly appreciate your leadership and advocacy in making TNEC a better place for everyone. On a separate note, we need to give our youth more opportunity to play, to be youth. I fully support the Voti field upgrades. Thank you for your time this evening.
We have Deborah Blayberg.
1 minute. Sorry, trying to get this to work. Hi, good evening. Deborah Blayberg, TNEC resident. First of all, back in 2020, I was actually a group of women who held a protest outside the Board of Education in order to get the school buildings open so the kids could go back to school, because whilst the other children were in school, the public school children weren't. Had to become a public health expert. Anyway, I would like to first of all thank you for just taking a minute and making sure that this ordinance is correct, so it doesn't make us a focus, so we don't have people bussing themselves in to object to it. It needs to be perfect, not good enough. It is as simple as that. And I appreciate the fact that you are taking the time. You're going to get someone independent because, again, there has to be transparency. And people like me, yes, I'm suspicious. I'm naturally suspicious. It's what I do. It's how I dealt with the school board during COVID, and it's how I deal with when things are not right. So I appreciate the fact that you have actually done that you're actually doing this. Because hang on a minute. Sorry, I can't read my notes, so I apologize. Anyway, just make sure that you get it right. Nobody wants any of this. I have been attacked. I have been verbally abused. I have dealt with some horrific situations as we've dealt with public schools. However, things are calm, things are quiet. Let's get it right so we don't have people coming in and causing other issues. That's all. It's not an attack on anybody, whatever. It's just get it right and be transparent. I've screamed for transparency on the Board of Education, and I've worked really hard to make sure there are people there that will be transparent. And I pray that this council can get themselves together, get over their humps and figure it out, because when you work together you can do some great things. So that's all I ask right now. I did have some great quips, but they're all gone out the window because I can't read my notes. So have a good evening, and again, just get it right so people like me, people who are curious, who are maybe not always going to fall into line, won't have those questions. Thank you.
We are bringing in Ziad. Please correct my pronunciation. If it's not correct, you are welcome to do that.
Hello, my name is Ziad Malah, Teaneck resident of 17 years. This proposed protest policy shouldn't even be entertained. The fact that we are just today discussing what is so overtly an attempt to restrict free speech is absurd. The mere discussion of this policy, as though it has any validity, serves to normalize the stripping of our constitutional rights. Let me restate this. Not only is this ordinance unethical, it is unconstitutional. The township's attempt to establish policy which it can leverage against speech they deem offensive is wrong. The mayor has previously stated how the council enforces policy selectively against certain protests because he disagrees with their messaging. This is textbook discrimination, and if the council chooses to approve it, it is a lawsuit waiting to happen. Any ordinance can appear to be content neutral, but this township has already deployed selective enforcement as a tactic to restrict protests. This policy is overtly wrong, unconstitutional, and a recipe for disaster, and Teaneck residents deserve better, and this council should know better. Thank you.
Bringing in Jasmine Ray.
Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear whenever you're ready. 3 minutes.
Okay, my name is Jasmine Ray. I'm a Teaneck resident, and I'm going to keep it short and sweet. This ordinance is a wolf in sheep's clothing. Any infringement on constitutional rights allowed to stand only provides an opportunity for more and more rights to be eroded in this town and everywhere else in this country. We do not need an ordinance. We need common sense. Protests are when the people take their streets and use their voice for a clear and united purpose to share a message that people refuse to have ignored any longer. Ann Schwartz, Oregon, and Katz, you cannot steal your constituents' voice. You cannot take our rights, and you cannot stop the people. I yield my time.
Bringing in Atika. Bringing in Atika. Give us 1 minute. Technological lag, moving from one side to the other. It takes a second. Akita, can you hear me? You're free to unmute.
Hi, my name is Atika Gunja. I'm actually from East Brunswick, but I've been to Teaneck several times. I have a lot of family and friends in that area. And I guess I definitely I staunchly oppose this ordinance. And I do think it affects all of our communities throughout New Jersey and in the United States of America because it is unconstitutional. It will strip our rights, First Amendment rights to free speech and assembly. So I absolutely oppose it. I'm appalled that you guys are even considering it to be an ordinance on your agenda in the future. So I would oppose that even ever getting on the agenda. I just wanted to, I guess maybe the only insight I can share is that I've been to a couple of protests in the last 2 years in Teaneck for Palestine. And what I can just share with you, with the town council, because I don't know if any of you guys have been to any of these events, they are some of the most violent, scary events that I've ever been to. I've been to tons of protests now for Palestine, New York City ones, in my own town in East Brunswick. There's never a threat in terms of our family safety. We can bring our children to these events. They're a great place for community where we get together, we can have speeches and talk and learn and share in solidarity for the causes that are important to us and to our community. And we have every right in America to do that. And we have to uphold that right because that is what makes this country so special. In Teaneck, those have been violated time and time again, to the point where I would never bring a child to any protest in Teaneck. And I don't think that that is the reputation of Teaneck in New Jersey amongst in Palestinian movement. I don't think that you guys want that necessarily, that type of reputation. So I'm just alarmed that that's happening in the streets of Teaneck. I know Teaneck is a very incredibly diverse town and extremely tolerant town, and I think it should really stay that way. So this is something that's going to have an impact on that, and I would advise you not to ever have such an ordinance on your agenda. So I staunchly oppose it. I hope to be able to continue to exercise my First Amendment rights in your town. We always do so. We always do so peacefully, and it should always be kept like that. So on their side, they've used mega loudspeakers with music, and so I mean, just creating the most chaotic scene. I would describe it as like hell on earth, is what it felt like to me being there. And that's not the Teaneck that I think you want to have. So if there's a safety threat, it's always been from that side, as far as I'm concerned. And I have not experienced that anywhere else, not even in New York City, the way that we do in Teaneck. So thank you so much for listening. Good night.
We have Sharuk Awudala.
Good evening, Shuruk Awdallah, Teaneck resident. I'm speaking to shed light on why it's the right decision to not move forward with the proposed changes to Chapter 31B. I want to point out that this is what becomes of our meetings when council brings an ordinance like this. While the ordinance's goal is to protect the constitutional rights, its broad and vague language threatens free speech. It creates a lot of unnecessary barriers to civic engagement. First, you could look at the definition of special event. You'll see that it's far too broad, requiring permits for nearly any gathering. And I know we said we're not talking about backyard parties and those types of gatherings, but when the language is so vague, I think that causes a lot of issues. Peaceful protests and small assemblies should not need government approval. Second, the ordinance grants too much discretion to officials, using vague terms like reasonably calculated. Who's to justify like those permit conditions? Without clear objective standards, enforcement can be arbitrary and unfair. This is going to open the town to a lot of discrimination lawsuits. Third, the 300-foot buffer zone around religious institutions, it goes far beyond legal precedent. The Supreme Court struck down a 35-foot buffer as unconstitutional. So in our ordinance in Teaneck, this would be nearly 10 times that. Finally, the ordinance's unclear penalties. I know the whole goal is to discourage public participation, but in Teaneck, I know it's always been valued, the civic engagement. The ordinance undermines that legacy. Please reconsider these unconstitutional restrictions and ensure that any regulations truly protect public safety without silencing our voices. I appreciate that you're taking the time to actually reach out to professionals that might know a little better about this just to ensure that the right wording is there. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. We have John Moscow. John, you're free to unmute.
My name's John Moscow. I've been a Teaneck resident for more than 30 years. I'm a proud Jew, And I think that I ask the council not to move forward with this proposed changes. It's blatantly unconstitutional, as people have pointed out, which will in fact end up costing TNEC money as it attempts to defend it in court. And there will be lawsuits if this is passed and implemented. Referring to a couple of points, as other speakers have, the idea of having to apply for a permit to hold a demonstration 10 days in advance is absolutely ludicrous. I can understand that if you're talking about a 10-day permit for the 4th of July parade or something like that, you know, I'm sure there can be discussion of that. But a 10-day period of notice for a political demonstration is just blatantly outrageous, as is this, as the previous speaker mentioned, setting 300 feet from a religious institution when in fact the Supreme Court's made very clear that, excuse me, much smaller buffer zones are not constitutional. But I want to address this issue of demonstrations outside of religious institutions. In this case, sorry about that, particularly synagogues, as somehow being anti-Semitic or somehow being violations of religious freedom. As Tova Fry pointed out, if you stopped selling illegal land on stolen land in Palestine as part of ethnic cleansing, you wouldn't have any demonstrations outside of synagogues. I'm not a student of Christianity, but I understand that Jesus kicked the money changers out of the temple, and that's exactly what we're talking about. And the fact that none of the people who've spoken supporting this resolution have cared to speak about the ethnic cleansing that is going on, that the Israeli government has acknowledged to be going on the West Bank, the genocide, and yes, I'm using the word genocide, that's taken place in Gaza. It seems to me there's an incredible amount of hypocrisy going on here, and that in fact it's Jews' duty to take the term never again and apply it not only to Jews, which I absolutely do, but also to everyone else. So I urge, and I have no faith, by the way, that there would be impartial and neutral permitting. It's very clear that this is an attempt to silence what to some people is unpopular speech, and to other people is absolutely morally and ethically mandated speech. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Clerk? Anyone else? Okay, seeing no one else on Zoom, make a close good and welfare.
Second.
Councilman Goldberg?
It brings me a lot of joy to see the Fields Board, which I recall there was a lot of pushback about the creation when I came up with that idea 16 months ago. So I'm really happy to see that everyone has a seat at the Fields table and is working so well together. I sat here on October 17th, 2023, condemning Hamas, while outside these chambers, people were chanting words lifted directly from the Hamas charter that from river to sea, Palestine will be free. Free of what? Free of Jews. That's not a call for peace. It's not a call about justice. It's about the destruction of Israel and the Jewish people. And today we face another painful reality, as Mr. Berliner and Mr. Kaplan mentioned. Thank you for mentioning my babysitter, Sarah. She was all of those amazing things, and she should be living today with her fiance, Matthew. Her convicted murderer walked free from prison so that innocent hostages could come home. That is who the Jewish people are. Remember that. Tomorrow, Jews worldwide will cry out in agony as Shiri, Ariel, and Kfir Bibas are laid to rest. Innocent babies taken as hostages and strangled in captivity with the bare hands of evil men. That is the world we live in. A world where Jewish lives are taken and forgotten. A world where hatred is excused, justified, and encouraged. Let me be crystal clear. These protests are anti-Semitic. When they say Zionist, they mean Jew. When they stand in these chambers and say, the Jews of Teaneck want anti-Semitism, they're not debating Middle East policy. They're spreading one of the oldest anti-Semitic lies that Jews bring hatred upon themselves. That is the language of Hamas, of Hezbollah, of Adolf Hitler and the Nazis, and the language of those who've spent decades calling for Jewish annihilation. I support Teaneck's entire Jewish community and its synagogues. I stand firmly against anti-Semitism, and I sit in this seat also to protect the township of Teaneck as a whole. When I took office, just as everyone else on this dais did, we all swore to uphold the Constitution of the United States. And that is why we must have an independent attorney, not representing anyone else in this town, guiding this entire council and creating the tools that we need to fight hate. This hate needs to be stopped, but this ordinance is not the way to fight hate. I want to be clear, a substantial portion of this ordinance was not written by the township attorney or any attorney hired by the township. This ordinance on the agenda is not how government should function. Law isn't passed based on threats of legal repercussions for not doing as we're told. They are passed smartly. This is not how we fight anti-Semitism. If we ignore it, it won't go away. If we ignore it, they still won't vote for us. This law does not allow us to ban free speech. The First Amendment does not require speech to be moral, kind, or just. It just requires it to be lawful. I have been told to go back to Auschwitz. I have been told our hostages are dead. I have been told that there are those who wish me dead like the Nazis because I am one, and there are those in this room that said nothing as those things were said to me. I condemn every single lie they scream. As much as I want nothing more to stop them from targeting the Jewish community, I cannot pass a law that has clear constitutional issues. If we want to fight anti-Semitism, we have to fight it where it counts. I will continue to pass IRA in the state level as the only elected member that has testified at the IRA hearing so that our government calls Jew hate by its name. I will continue to call out every single politician, leader, and activist who refuses to acknowledge anti-Semitism or tells us to move on or calls it international politics. No, I won't stop talking about anti-Semitism. I will keep showing up every time, even if I'm the only one who bears witness. And if we truly want to stop hate, it cannot only be the Jewish community speaking out. Our friends and neighbors must call it out too. So thank you again to my friend, Councilman Pagan, for standing up against hate and refusing to stay silent when so many others have. This fight is far from over. I do not cower in the face of those who seek to intimidate the Jewish community. We will not be erased, not today, not tomorrow, not ever.
Thank you, Councilman McGovern. Councilman G? Yep.
Just want to say thank you to everyone for coming out and sharing your thoughts on the items on the agenda and more. I wanted to clarify to you, Mr. Rose, the statement again about the subcommittees and the transparency. I fully support transparency, but I want to make sure that all 7 of us feel comfortable with the path forward that we choose. I think some of my colleagues provided some really good examples of where we might not have achieved successful negotiations had these meetings been in public. And so there's something we need to talk through what's the best way to do that. I'm largely in support of the ordinance as drafted, and I look forward to the task force coming back to us with some suggestions on how to move forward. Regarding the ordinance, again, the intent of this ordinance, I think, was coming from the right place. It pains me to hear that our residents don't feel safe, and that they feel harassed in places of worship, in front of their homes. At the same time, we have to make sure that any law we pass is constitutional. And so I look forward to bringing in the experts to talk to us a little bit more about how we can ensure that whatever ordinance we consider is in fact constitutional. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman G. Deputy Mayor Belcher?
Okay, yes, I just also want to thank my neighbors for coming out and speaking out. A couple things. Transparency in government is vitally important. It is something that I don't care how many times we have to go back to the drawing board. We will do that until we get it right, because I feel as if these subcommittees, everyone has a right to know what's going on within government. I'm committed to that, and we'll continue to work to see that things are continue to be transparent. The swim club committee, I'm so glad that we've made the progress that we've made. The collaboration has been great. I envision the day where we will see the Teaneck High School, all of our school students throughout the township and families can partake. So I'm super excited about the upcoming season. I've said many times that I'm determined to see an Olympic swimmer, perhaps a gold medalist, that comes out of that swim club or our township swim club. I'm excited also to know that there is interest in the housing authority, Mr. Rose, we have had differing opinions in terms of how we go about, ensuring that our residents can get preferential treatment on affordable units. I think that perhaps maybe one of the very first things that maybe our redevelopment agency can explore is there a way in which that can be done? Because as you all can see, we put an inordinate amount of hours into this job. And as a result of that, I would certainly want to see that our residents are given some type of preference. If we're putting these hours into master plans and into redevelopment plans and so forth, why not give our residents some type of leg up on housing? I want to say that I believe, and I always have believed, that our residents, every resident, has a right to be safe in our township. However, freedom of speech is the cornerstone of what we swore an oath to, what I swore an oath to when I have taken on any type of position. I think it's vitally important that we consult with our subject matter experts, people that we pay, people that work for us, not a working, for free or anything, but are working for us. I will always feel able to turn to any of our attorneys and ask them questions. Is it legal? What are our options? What do we do? And so forth. And I feel that that's something that we have an obligation to you as residents to do. We swore an oath to the Constitution. It's the baseline from which we measure things. This being Black History Month, I'm just looking at Dr. King's his statement about the only weapon that we have in our hands this evening is the weapon of protest. That's what Dr. Martin Luther King said. That is the means by which people can express themselves. The voiceless can express themselves. So we want to make sure that whatever we do, it's constitutional. And I think that that's what our obligation is to who we serve. So here again, thank you. Thank you for coming out tonight, and God bless.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Belcher. Deputy Morgan.
So we brought this ordinance forward in January, and we've had, I think, 3 meetings since then. Tonight, I was asking for approval, not to introduce it, but to put it on the agenda, to then introduce it in 2 weeks, to then discuss it for another 2 weeks and adopt it if we could. And so talk of transparency and talk of free speech, talk of suppression, this just seems like a case in that. There's no reason tonight why we couldn't have agreed to put this ordinance on the next agenda to then discuss it and still hire an attorney in that time. I don't like, we have many volunteers in this town who give so much of their time, and many of them are case study experts. And I wish to thank Akiva Shapiro so much for being willing to answer any question we had, any question Scott had, any question anybody in town that brought up to us a serious question had. I am disappointed in my colleagues that nobody brought anything forward until now. And this was on the agenda Thursday. I would have liked to at least see the grace of allowing it to be put on the agenda for discussion. And I find that very frustrating. I think that we have a job here to do. Our job is to protect the residents. It's to vote on ordinances and to make the law. And that's our job, not to go to protests and challenge people there, but we sit right here with the opportunity to work with an attorney and to spend the taxpayers' money to protect them in our own way. And I think that's what we should be doing. It doesn't matter what color clothing we're wearing or if we're painting our nails. At the end of the day, our job is to come here and to pass ordinances to protect the people in town and to keep our workforce safe.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for everyone coming out. Thank you for the respectful dialogue. While you may seem, Deputy Mayor Organ, frustrated, I'm actually super optimistic about this. I think we heard some good comments from the council, and I think when that constitutional lawyer comes back and, in my opinion, gives a blessing, that we will have a 7-0 unanimous ordinance. It's an ordinance you worked hard on, so I'm looking for a full support once we have that blessing, and I think that blessing we will have. Just to end up my comments, just a little jumping onto the Housing Authority. The Housing Authority indeed gives us the ability to have preference to our residents. However, any affordable housing that's built under the Housing Authority that counts to the numbers that we're required to have under the Laurel Hill or the Mount Laurel, whatever we're calling it nowadays, the Council of Affordable Housing cannot be specific to the township. So we could build 1,000 units, dedicate them all to our Teaneck residents, but they cannot count towards that 382 or so number that we have. But we'll hear more about that with our redevelopment committee and whatnot, a redevelopment agency. So with that being said, I'll turn it over to the next part of our meeting, which will be the consent agenda and the bill list. Mr. Clerk, take it away.
The bill list in the amount of $5,823,325.29, and the resolution that we added earlier this evening, 100
Thank you very much.
2025.
Council?
Wait, Mr. Mayor, can we just pull 95, 2025?
Yeah, 95 will pull. Anybody else
That's
to
it.
pull anything? Okay, with that, we'll entertain a motion to approve 94, 96, 97, 98, 99, 100 in the bill list in the amount that was listed. I'll make that motion.
What was the 100?
100 was,
Travis Meyer,
Okay.
Field
Travis.
Advisory
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Board.
fine.
do I have a second on my motion?
We
Second.
pulled 95.
95 is being pulled, so we have a second, we have all the approval on everything but 95 in the bill list. Seconded
Second,
by Councilmember
Councilwoman
G.
G.
Roll call, please.
Councilwoman Goldberg,
Yes to all, abstention on the bills list.
Councilman Pagan,
Mr. Clerk, I'm abstaining on the bill list and voting yes on everything else.
Councilwoman G.
Yes.
Councilman Katz.
Abstention on the bill list and abstention on 98, 2025.
Deputy Mayor Belcher,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Organ,
Yes to all.
Mayor Schwartz.
Yes to everything. I will be abstaining on the last of the Jewish Link ads. Jewish Link is no longer an is no longer the newspaper record, so that balance of ads is under 25,006.95 and 25,007.37. And so I'm not sure if that passes without someone else.
Ellie, can you vote for the Jewish Link?
Yes, I vote for the Jewish Link.
Passes, and we'll go back to 95 to Councilwoman Goldberg.
So really quick, so I don't know if everyone remembers last year, Mr. Vatsky came to Chambers to talk about CSX, and on the payments here, there is a payment to CSX. So through Mr. Vatsky and the help of Doug and Dean, and Scott, we were able to locate the 100-year-old contract where we're paying that. But I know we've been asking the attorney and he's been talking to CSX. It seems that we're upholding our end of the contract to pay them the $1,500 a year, but they're responsible for infrastructure improvements. It's a 100-year-old contract, and I believe that we were asking them to reimburse us on the State Street Bridge if it wasn't the pedestrian bridge that needed to be improved. And I would like to make a motion that we pass everything except for the CSX payment, because they're not upholding their end of the contract. So I would ask the attorney go back to them to see what they say, but we're paying them and they're not upholding their end of the contract.
Second.
Is there a problem with that, Mr. Attorney?
Not a problem. No.
Let's call the roll call on ratifying all the payments except for the $1,500 to CSX as moved by Councilman Goldberg and seconded by Councilman Pagan.
Just what do we want to do with that 1,500?
Tell them where to go.
Just pull it out and table it until Scott comes back. Like I said, it's a contract and we're paying them, but they're not abiding by it.
Yeah, I agree with Councilmember Goldberg on that.
But approving everything else.
Yeah.
And that was first from who? I'm sorry.
Councilman Goldberg, second from Councilman Pagan.
Is there a timeline on that? I mean, is there? Because we're basically not paying a bill until we hear back from the attorney.
Scott, do
So
you want
what
to
would you
explain
say?
what it is? Right, we're paying them. So Deputy Mayor Belcher, there's, I can forward the bill that Issa sent me. So it's from this contract, we're required to pay for wires and sewer, something with the trains, as part of the township allowing them to build the rail. Again, it goes back to 1925, I think it was. It was literally, but so the other part of that contract was that they have to pay for infrastructure improvements, and in early 2000s, correct me if I'm wrong, Councilmember Katz, we actually were able to get them to pay for the underpass improvements by holding them to this contract. I mean, it took a couple years, but we were able to do it and save millions. And we're paying, I mean, it's a small amount of money, but we're upholding our end of the contract and they're not. And I think that, we owe our residents.
Yeah, I get that, but what I'm saying is that because this is a historic kind of contract, is there a certain timeline that, you feel that they're going to respond to, Mr. Attorney?
Things off. A specific date on how long it's going to take them to respond, but I think I can hopefully get an answer for you in the next, say it's Tuesday, in the next few days. I'll reach out to them and see when they when they expect that they can get back to us.
Okay, thanks.
Hey, roll call that, please. A second from Councilman Pagan.
Councilwoman Goldberg,
Yes.
Councilman Pagan.
Yes.
Sorry about that. Councilwoman G,
Yes.
Councilman Katz,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Belcher,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Organ,
Yes.
Mayor Schwartz.
Yes, introduction of ordinances. Mr. Clerk, there's one to be introduced.
Yes, we have this evening the one and only ordinance 16-2025, amending the township code to revise recreation fees.
Okay, a motion to introduce.
Second.
Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Councilwoman Goldberg,
Yes.
Councilman Pagan,
Yes.
Councilwoman G,
Yes.
Councilman Katz,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Belcher,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Organ,
Yes.
Mayor Schwartz.
Yes, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
People on camera want to hear a vote roll call? We're good with nodding heads? We're good with nodding heads? No?
I saw all the nodding heads.
Yes, thank you. Have a good night, everyone. Meeting